official, right? We're getting the we're hosting the 2000. What year is it? 28 draft.
28, yeah.
2028 National Football League draft, as predicted. Once the announcement became official, we've gotten all the requisite quotes from various boards and economic entities projecting just how vital. Put it this way: if we hadn't ever had the chance to host this thing, there's a good possibility that this would have become this Minneapolis might have become a tumbleweed town. But thank God we've got the draft for all of, how many days is it? 4?
The draft is 3, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And we're going to turn it into, I'm sure, a month-long celebration.
It'll probably go right into the state fair.
By the way, why don't we do it there? Why don't we open up the fair and do it there?
The NFL probably can't afford it.
Oh,
they'd have to give the fair a cut.
And we still wouldn't get good parking passes, I don't think. Well, no, they'd have to, because there'd be a daily parade. They're getting in the way of our time. Yeah, we'd still have to. I'd still have to take the bus from the Sky-U-Ma lot.
Yeah, the Wilmer Band has got to go through, so we can't park.
That's exactly it. It's fine. I've had fun with it. I'm not gonna toss and turn over it. I don't believe the quote I saw from somebody today was, "This is Super Bowl light." Come on, don't invoke the term Super Bowl in the same sentence. It's not Super Bowl light. It's become a thing. But how much is it going to change lives here? I don't know. I'm sure as we get closer, we'll lie to ourselves and convince ourselves it's even worth more than we indeed thought. Have we gotten the list yet of what we gave up? Because as you said, the last time we got the Super Bowl, we found out all these ridiculous perks eventually were revealed, right?
The concessions, yeah.
So do we know yet what we gave up? How much transparency has there been thus far regarding what we gave up to get, to what degree were we forced once again to sell our souls to get not a game, but a draft weekend?
Probably pretty close to what we had to do before, but no, I don't think there's been any reporting on that. I'm sure there will be, because there was last time. And so people will do some digging, I would imagine.
Tax breaks?
Probably. Hotel rooms.
Any state money involved?
I don't know how that works.
Probably not. I hope not.
I don't know how that works.
Who knows? I mean, that's for Kessler to find out. If he was still on the beat, that's what we'd ask him to do.
He would check in. Well, no, he wouldn't, though, because it's the Vikings and everything they do is great. Bagley would tell him to stand down, and he would.
By the way, I don't know if there's any way for you to confirm this or not. Did I text you this, or I might have just texted Kessler this? So what game did the Wolves get eliminated in by the Spurs? 6?
6.
Game 6. I am 98.5% convinced that we sat directly behind my pillow guy.
Mike Lindell?
Yes. Now,
Really?
I never tapped him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, are you Mike Lindell?" So I didn't want to be, in that regard, because I was like, well, if he says, what are we going to do now? I don't really, he didn't have any pillows with him.
Did he have a Dominion voting machine with him? He carried those around for a while. The
tip-off was one individual came up to him and I thought said something like, "I'm a delegate." And so that was, because up until then I go, that might be Lindell, but I said, no, what are the odds? It's Mike Lindell. And then that's what triggered my thinking that it really was Mike Lindell. Have we had anybody else note a Mike Lindell sighting?
You're the first.
I don't know that that it was him, because I don't know if he was there.
You're the first. Maybe somebody can hit the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line and let us know if you also saw my pillow guy. But, it would make sense.
Yeah.
He's a Minnesotan. I'm sure he likes the Wolves.
I wonder if he's tempted to bring a pillow.
He's probably got one in his car.
Yeah, that's probably true.
At all times.
Yeah.
Kessler gifted me his book at the state fair. Do you remember that?
No.
I have Mike Lindell's book. I don't know why he brought
that's right.
it. I think he thought it was funny.
It's Kessler being wacky.
I don't think it landed that great at the fair, but then I got a book. What am I going to do? Just throw the book away?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I texted Kessler. He ignored me.
Interesting.
So I don't know. Maybe is he out on tomorrow? Is he boycotting the show?
No, I think he's supposed to be back.
Okay.
He hasn't told me. Usually he gives me a couple of days heads up that he's not going to make it. You did not text me that the night of Game 6. This was the first.
Then it
I've
would have
heard
been
about
Kessler.
It. Yeah, you must have texted
I know I
Kessler.
texted somebody about it, and it. A couple good texts are coming in now, not related to My Pillow Guy, but we'll save those for a minute because we got Raguse coming up, right? And first, though, some bonus bucks, right?
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest, and the keyword is fun. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword fun.
Never as entertaining as when via the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line, in order to make whatever point they want to make, people with a straight face actually attempt to denigrate the influence and impact that Lou Alcindor had on the NBA when he came into the league. Keep making fools of yourselves.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
From the 1-800 Ask Gary Traffic Center. This report is sponsored.
Don't forget, Louie will join us in studio for the 5 o'clock hour, so you can line up your questions now. Lots of time to vet pretty much everything. This is our Louie exit interview on the Wild's 2025-26 season. Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line is open at 64686. Lou Raguse, Carol Levin, kind enough to join us now via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. If you have questions for him, you can pass those along to us as well. Mr. Raguse, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for agreeing to join us on very short notice. We got a lot of stuff I think we can try to cover in fairly short order. Many of these stories you have been covering. So I think this story broke Monday. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office issuing a nationwide arrest warrant for the ICE agent who allegedly shot a Venezuelan immigrant. This was in North Minneapolis. This was during, of course, the Operation Metro Surge, and then lied about the circumstances that led to the shooting. I think even the government at some point acknowledged that. Bring our listeners who have not been paying attention. Maybe they've been in hockey mode. Maybe they've been in basketball playoff mode. What they need to know, the particulars regarding this story.
Well, during Operation Metro Surge, there were 3 shootings that were carried out by federal agents. Of course, Renee Good was killed in that first shooting. Alex Preddy was killed in a shooting. The third shooting involved somebody in North Minneapolis. The victim's name was Julio Sosa Solis. He was not killed. It was a non-fatal shooting. But that was the night where, after it happened, it kind of descended into chaos up there. I mean, the city was very close to a repeat of the 2020 riots. That's how much on the brink it was, as far as, angry folks and limited police coverage at that point. But anyway, Kristi Noem initially called it an attempted murder of a federal agent. And what people might remember it from is that the agent claimed that he was being attacked with a snow shovel and a broom, and he fired in self-defense to get the guy off of him. Well, shortly after, a couple weeks later, video surfaced. The victim and his friend were both charged initially with assaulting an officer. Those charges needed to be dropped. And then Todd Lyons, who's the acting director of ICE, publicly said that the agents were lying about what happened, the ICE agents, and that they're under investigation within the organization. So fast forward, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty is pretty determined to investigate those shootings to the best that the state can without having access to any of the federal investigation evidence. But in this one, there was so much accessible evidence to them. This thing was basically captured on video. They figured out the identity of the guy, and they ended up charging him with assault. So the next step is, and this is maybe a harder step than it usually would be, is serving this warrant on him and getting him here to face the charges. Because she charged another agent in a gun pointing incident a few weeks ago, and they still haven't arrested that guy.
So, and in this case, there's no indication so far that the individual that they're looking for has been located. Is that correct?
He has not. I mean, we believe that he lives in Texas. We don't have it 100% confirmed yet. So it's not as if he would be impossible to find, but the warrant would have to be served on him, with somebody that has authority to do so. And of course, there's a lack of cooperation. Yesterday, the Homeland Security spokesperson sent a statement to me that called it political grandstanding, basically. So not even acknowledging, the legitimacy of the criminal charge. And getting him to come here and face the charges is going to be harder. And it's not a simple case, even though this one, there's a lot of facts in favor of the prosecution on this one. But it's not simple because when it's a federal agent that is charged in state court, there's a process where they move it over into federal court and they have some level of immunity that they will argue about. So all that legalese stuff will come once he's finally here, but it's not a open and shut case. Well,
did the individuals that you guys got in touch with at least acknowledge that even authorities on the federal level, Homeland Security authorities, acknowledged that the story didn't add up, that he lied in terms of the ICE agents, what they claimed happened didn't come close to approximating what they were able to put together? Was there even any acknowledgement of that?
There was, and that's where the statement that they sent contradicts itself, because they call what Mary Moriarty doing a political stunt, referring to her as a sanctuary city politician. And then in the second paragraph of the statement, they say that lying is a federal offense, and he's being investigated by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he could be charged in federal court and could be fired if he's found, to be that he was lying.
So when it's a county kind of, like you say, it's a nationwide arrest warrant out of a county office. How does the jurisdiction work? Is it, let's just say he is the individual that they are assigning the arrest warrant to. Is it they have to get county prosecution where in the county that he presides in? They can't obviously, go from Minnesota. They can't have any law enforcement types representing the county go to Texas or wherever, correct? What's the procedure in a situation like this? Not
without the cooperation of the local authorities.
Right.
So essentially, if he got pulled over for speeding by a state trooper in his home state, that trooper would have the authority to arrest him on the warrant, an out-of-state warrant.
Okay.
And then he would be in the jail at the local place where he got arrested, and they would have to extradite him here on these charges. So it's a process. I mean, in America, agencies tend to cooperate with each other a lot better than they did decades ago, where you could cross the state line and then not face any repercussions like on Dukes of Hazzard or something like that. But, they cooperate a lot more now, but obviously times are a little different at the moment with the lack of cooperation between federal authorities and state authorities.
All right, let's. So we'll keep an eye on that story. I don't know how much of this you covered. You mentioned the Renee Good killing, and I think this came up at the press conference because the authorities and the county level have said they're investigating there with an intent to eventually charge. But do we know where that investigation is at and how close they might be to any kind of charges?
Yeah, those ones are going to be harder, and I'm not going to make a prediction of whether or not there ends up being charges or not. But obviously, in the Renee Good one, they know who the shooter was. His name is Jonathan Ross, and he's an agent that was based locally. So that stumbling block, they've made it past, but they don't have any access to the vehicle yet. And so that was a huge thing as far as getting the angles that the bullets went into the car. She was behind the wheel of her vehicle when she was shot. So there's a lot of things in that one involves issues, that he was standing in front of the car at the time and, is going to make the claim that she was trying to run him over. And so all those things need to be balanced when figuring out whether to file a charge or not. And it's hard to come to a conclusion when you don't have the actual vehicle to examine. and that's a major thing in that case, that the feds have not allowed any access to that. Then in the Alex Preddy case, they were even further behind the eight ball because they didn't have the names of the officers involved, and the BCA was never let close to the crime scene until it was way over. Like, that was the one where they went and got a search warrant for a public street, as ridiculous as that is.
Right.
And they presented the search warrant to get access to the public street, and they were still being blocked.
So we're going to add, the feds are going to ask, I should say, for 50 years in the Amy Bach case. Is that correct?
That's right. And that's Thursday morning that she is going to be sentenced. Her attorney came back and in his position paper says that he's asking for no more than 3 years. So quite a big difference there. But legally, they could ask for up to life. So they're asking for 50 years, and the judge will have a lot of discretion in what she's going to hand down.
There is a lot of discretion in this case. And that's Thursday, you said? Thursday morning?
Yep, Thursday morning at 9.
I think the last time we talked about the stuff that was being leaked, including to you, that you said you didn't exactly move you all that much. But is there any, since we talked, does the judge respond? Has the judge responded in that case? Can there be any repercussions for going for what seems to be a fairly unprecedented decision or strategy, I guess you'd say, on the part of the defense?
So what happened since then is, so the judge issued an order that the defense would work with the prosecution to figure out everyone that Amy Bach's people had emailed materials to. And over the weekend, I received an email from them, basically saying, give us back what you were sent and don't use it in your reporting, blah, blah, blah. That's right. Kind of what there's Supreme Court cases saying that they can't stop you as a passive recipient from reporting on things that people send you. But anyway, they sent the email to 144 different people, me, many other reporters, and many, many lawmakers in the state legislature. So it was kind of interesting to see the vast list of names that they were trying to influence. As for how it will affect Amy Bach, though, and by the way, actually, we don't know for sure that it came from Amy Bach, but the Star Tribune received far more documents and sensitive details and stuff, and they did publish an article with some of that over the weekend. As for how it will affect Amy Bach, I think that it does play a factor into the sentencing decision on Thursday, because it's obviously conveying, a lack of remorse and a lack of belief that she did anything wrong.
In the case, did you say they asked for the stuff back, whatever got sent to you and other people that they had been in touch with, passing along this info? Is that what you said?
That's right. And
did you do you comply in a situation like that? You're Lou Raguse, intrepid reporter. How do you handle that sort of thing?
You don't. It's just, they're making the request.
Right.
There's no legal, look up the Supreme Court case, the Pentagon Papers. Yeah. There's so much precedent that if you're a passive recipient of stuff, you don't have to. There's prior restraint. They can't stop you from reporting on stuff like that. But the fact is, the stuff that they sent me, frankly, was boring. So
yeah, that's what you said. Really wasn't all that much to excite you. Well, I just want this to end up being one of those cases where you got to you're threatened with jail time, and then you got to be the intrepid reporter who stands tall and says, "Fine, put the cuffs on me. I'm not giving you this information. I got a job to do."
No, I think Amy Bach is the only one that needs to worry about jail at the present time.
Yeah, that's very true. One other item. This is from several days ago that you tweeted out. A SNAP trafficking fraud case that you say that you've been tracking and reporting on, paying attention to, for 5 years. I think since 2021. Refresh my memory on what this is about and what some of the concerns are in this case and how it might now be resolved.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, the federal government has been taking a firmer stand on investigating SNAP fraud, which means the misuse of EBT cards or food stamps for fraudulent purposes, whether it's done by the grocery store owner or the people that receive the cards. So so there's been these raids and these investigations recently, but this charge that popped up in Hennepin County, as soon as I saw the name, I'm like, oh man, that's the one that I was paying attention to back in 2021. So, far prior to the current administration, this was an investigation. And I don't know why it wasn't charged back then, because it doesn't appear that they did much since then. But to summarize what this guy is accused of doing, he owned a grocery store on Lake Street in Minneapolis, and he would have a pocket full of EBT cards that belonged to other people. And he would go to Sam's Club and Costco and buy groceries to resell at his store. So he would profit twice. He'd get free. He would get free groceries to stock his store with, and then he would presumably would keep the money when he sells those groceries. And the people whose cards he got caught, according to the court papers, he got caught red-handed with the cards in his pocket after he bought grocery carts full of baby formula or something like that. And the people who were on the card had already left the country, so they said that they had no idea why he had them, and they're not charged with anything. But that's just to kind of summarize one way that SNAP fraud can happen. And there's other ongoing investigations right now, so it's probably another one that we're going to see more of.
This is the case you're referring to was not a federal case, though, correct?
Correct. It's in Hennepin County, Mary Moriarty's office.
Yeah, and one of the questions and I think you're still trying to get the answer to, is why it has taken so long, correct?
Yeah, it was investigated by the Minnesota BCA, and they didn't turn it over to the county attorney's office until last month. And so the county attorney's office got the case from them, read it over, and filed the charge within a week or two. So they charged it pretty much as soon as they got it. It was maybe they were hoping to get bigger fish in their investigation, and eventually they just decided to send it in. We don't really know, but there's a number of ways that could have happened.
We appreciate you as always, my friend. We'll be in touch as these stories play out, because now what's happened, Lou, is we're trying to reconnect with the A section. We kind of got into the habit of, all right, we have the unprecedented nature of both the winter sports teams not only making the playoffs in the same year, advancing out of the first round in the same year. So we're gonna dive in and kind of leave the A section aside for a bit. Well, now reality is set in. They're both eliminated. So now we're going to be bugging you a lot again.
You know what? I'm completely fine with having a longer spring of being a sports fan in Minnesota. So I was happy that you guys were able to experience that.
Yeah, it's when it ends quick. But we had some nice
and then watching Wemby last night, I don't know how he can be stopped.
Well, like I said, the answer everybody keeps coming up with is getting moved to the Eastern Conference, and that at least means you delay having to play them until the NBA Finals. You still have to deal with them potentially, but at least you don't have. You can get to the you get to the NBA Finals. You say, and that can be in itself something worthy of a commemorative print. Appreciate you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, Lou.
They're saying they haven't seen a.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Lou, they're saying they haven't seen a performance that dominant since Lou Raguse high school football as the tight end. That's the last
time. Think about it.
Whereas men against boys, it's like
Kyle Alberta or Clinton Graceville.
Yeah, Clinton Graceville. It's like, what do we do with this guy? We have no answer for this guy. That's what they're saying. That's what I've seen today.
Who was a better high school athlete, Lou Raguse or Paul Bloom?
Oh.
I haven't seen Paul Bloom's tape, so I can't answer that question.
We're going to have to get his YouTube.
Yeah,
we're going to have to find his YouTube.
We're going to do some deep dive and get some reporting done on that. 84. Some original reporting done on that, too. That's what we're going to have to do. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Lou Raguse helping us out via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Of course, Lou is the intrepid reporter we rely on from time to time from Care 11 fame. Let's get a break in now. Louie at the top of the hour. I think it's a pretty easy segue from talking to Lou to diving a little deeper into a story or series of stories that he has tended to cover well and a lot. And in this case, it involves the Star Tribune and some stories that broke over the weekend. Once again, sending a pretty stern and sobering message regarding the series of scandals that we classify as feeding our future, but actually have gone a lot wider than that. And every time we think we've uncovered all there's left to uncover regarding the missteps, the blunders, we actually find out it's maybe even worse than we thought. Stay tuned. can only scratch the surface on some reporting done over the weekend, in this case via the Star Tribune, regarding what they have suggested is a bunch of newly released investigative records that they have been able to glean, including FBI interviews with current and former Minnesota Department of Education employees who, as the Star Tribune puts it, described internally questioning unusually large reimbursement requests and questionable meal sites long before the feds publicly announced their investigation in 2002. To a certain extent, what they've learned is more of the same, but I think every time you can dig a little deeper to get further confirmation of just how badly this state performed on a number of levels, it's worthy of us continuing to explore. Example, they quote heavily Jenny Butcher, a 25-year veteran of the Minnesota Department of Education. She retired in 2024. A Butcher telling federal investigators in May 2022 that abuse in the meals program was an open secret. Supervisors repeatedly stopped her from digging into suspicious reimbursement claims and discouraged her from visiting sites that seemed unbelievable to her. She also did talk to the Star Tribune. No one at our agency was allowed to go to the sites. Think about that. No one at our agency was allowed to go to the sites, not even a drive-by, end quote. At least two other state officials echo her characterization of the Education Department's timid, retaliatory approach, one could say. And what this, I think, does is it makes a mockery out of the suggestion for people higher up the food chain who continued to pretend that we just didn't know. And once we knew, we went after it really hard. That is being proven yet again to be utter nonsense. That it's the classic case of, all right, I'm going to, we've got to do some measure of damage control, and so that's our responsibility. You had individuals seemingly in good faith, I think in some cases using their professional expertise and saying 2 + 2 doesn't equal 10, but it keeps coming up 10. And all I can do in my job, I guess, is raise these questions. Ultimately, the people in authority, the individuals in authority are the ones who have to come forward and, you know, say, okay, well, let's take a long, hard look at this thing, or let's add some individuals to see if your suspicion adds up to anything. One colleague, according to Star Tribune, told the FBI that she was forced to, quote, take back a rule that would have limited sites from switching sponsors more than once a year, a tactic fraudsters use to overwhelm regulators and make it harder for them to spot fraud. After Feeding Our Future complained to the commissioner's office. And we get further confirmation, as we have heard certainly before. We've talked about this with Andy Luger from time to time. The records show department officials worried Feeding Our Future would sue the state or accuse agency employees of racism if regulators took stronger enforcement action against the nonprofit, which largely served Minnesota's East African community. The climate of we don't want to be called racists, which was exploited brilliantly by the crooks in this case, is a very significant part of the story. If we didn't know that before, we kind of did. I think that has been confirmed. And at some point, I guess you'd say, we're going to have to get past that. We're going to have to allow individuals who are not giving any particular reason to think that they are only evaluating on racial grounds, that instead it just might be remotely possible. They're reacting to the specifics of a given business or a given case. But I will tell you, I'm not convinced that if we had to do it all over again, the same thing would not be the result. If the assumption is that issue can be exploited because it has been exploited, it will probably be exploited again. And let me quickly add, that doesn't mean racism doesn't exist. It doesn't mean discrimination does not exist. But until we grow up in this regard, we're not going to get out of this morass in any meaningful way. Now, maybe we are, just because there's been so much attention put to it that there are brakes being put up across the board. And in fact, in some ways, maybe there's an overcorrection. There's been discussion about that before, in which businesses who are earnestly trying to be professional and get the monies to the places they're supposed to go are seeing more roadblocks than they even deserve. That would be obviously very concerning. Here's another big nugget I thought out of the story. We had this continuing excuse having to do with, well, judges are pushing back on us, and we just feel like legally we're too vulnerable. What have we come to find out in this particular case? Well, what we have found out is that in a number of situations, if there had been proper legal advice given, in other words, lawyers hired to represent this organization, I'm talking about security. I should say Homeland. So it's the services. The what's the name of the? It's the DHS, I guess. What I'm talking about.
Human Services.
Human Services.
Of Human
Not
Services.
Homeland Security. That's a different issue. Human Services. That indeed, there were lawyers perfectly willing to defend the approach that some of these investigators, you could say, were willing to take if they had some backing. But we didn't exactly, it appears, hire until one could say maybe it was too late. We waited, that particular entity, DHS, waited too long to have in place legal eagles who might have well made them feel like they're coming at this from a greater, I guess you could say, position of strength. That was another very significant part, I think, of what came to me. In fact, there's a quote here from Catherine Thiessen, if I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, Special Reviews Director with the State Office of the Legislative Auditor. She told the Star-Tribune the department had the authority necessary to take stronger action, but lacked the legal infrastructure and expertise to fully use its regulatory powers. The department was ill-prepared to deal with these issues, and the records note that the department did not appoint a general counsel, and this is mind-blowing to me, until 2022. So some of the legal intimidation was because you didn't have the expertise in place, maybe to recommend how far you could safely go, to fire back, maybe even to represent this entity in the courts against judges who may or may not have been pushing back from this standpoint too hard. And so the lessons, I think, are clear. Are they learned now? I don't know. I don't know that we can be sure that they are, but the detail that has been gleaned through this through these records just, I think, confirms more than ever what we knew. The notion that, what are you going to do? It's tough. It was a tough time. It's post-COVID. Everybody's running around crazily trying to get the money to the right people who deserve it. And I keep hearing this, and it's so embarrassing to the state. We're just too generous. That's what we're actually going with. With our money, with money that was supposed to get to the people who needed it, we're just so generous, and we're trusting.
Too trusting.
We're just too trusting. That's actually being used as a legitimate comeback to what over and over we are seeing is I won't necessarily say preventable series of scandals, but ones that clearly could have been revealed sooner or at least mitigated a bit so they're not as record-breaking nationwide. We still don't have anything like it. Now, there's a couple indications, California, there might be a few, but you read this kind of stuff and you just sort of shake your head and you say, man, we have let ourselves, when I say we letting ourselves off the hook, it's not up to us. It's obviously the people in positions of authority. And you're not exerting anything in any way, shape, or form remotely related to leadership. If the minute somebody suggests that your tactics are racist, you curl up in the fetal position. You're not a leader. You're pandering at that point. And again, the irony is you are penalizing the individuals, whoever they are, whatever ethnic group they come from, who apparently had these services and this generosity coming to them. But we got scared out of our minds because, and it does prove, people don't like to talk about it. The issue of racism is real. The possibility that there are individuals capable of exploiting that issue, using it to their own financial benefits, is also real. And until we come to grips with that and acknowledge it, and don't immediately, when a government entity pushes back and says, whoa, we got to this is not adding up here. If the first thing we do is demand an explanation for why are you going after these individuals, if we don't consider first what is the, content of the allegation, what is the behavior involved regardless of who is doing it, we're doomed to repeat this over and over again, just so we can say, can't call me a racist. As soon as we realized, we backed off. Last thing our agency could possibly deal with is to develop a backbone that says we are following stories that it is our obligation to follow, regardless of the ethnicity of the individuals who happen to be involved in that given business. That's going to be, when we look back on it, the biggest part of this story, sadly. A
lot in the story, like you mentioned. And to bring which one was it? There was the other big fraud story where like 15 companies were in the same office building.
Yes, we did talk about that one before.
And that was one where I think the budget was like $2 million for the year, and 6 months in, they were like $60 million.
Yes.
And I think I said this on TV too. It's like 4 miles from the Capitol. As the crow flies, someone could have easily driven by, and I think I said...
Well, that's the other thing. Think about what I said earlier. You are ordered to not drive by. What's the fear? The fear, obviously, is, what if somebody takes a photo, of a government car driving by? Bunch of racists in the Capitol running the government here. What are we doing? It's preposterous.
And that's kind of where I was going. It's like I wondered, how do you not at least go check in on that address? Because that seems like it'd be a red flag when there's so many different companies that are billing for these services just in the same office park. That seems like a big coincidence. Same office building. And I think we found our answer, that they were discouraged from looking into it that deeply.
It's absurd. And again, I've said this a bunch of times over the last 6 months. The individuals who should be the most incensed and the most all over this story, I get it. You don't want to give sustenance to the enemy. You don't want to give sustenance to the federal government that loves this story for mainly, no question, political reasons. You got to, if you're going to grow up, you got to figure this out from a different angle, which is we should be the one. If we believe in this generosity, we believe in these programs, and we were such poor bleeping stewards of them, we should be leading all of these investigations. We should want full transparency and full accounting. And as Andy Luger, not exactly a crackpot Barry Goldwater conservative, has said to us in this studio, the racism bit regarding this issue has got to stop as being the automatic place we go to and the assumption made. If there is evidence to suggest that racism is involved in who you're going after, follow that story. But in these cases, it had nothing to do with it, as we've now learned. And those bad guys, those responsible for these various crimes, You think they didn't know it? You think those individuals didn't have a field day saying, "Oh, we'll have them running. We'll have them scurrying back to the state capitol. They aren't going to touch us. We'll just talk about how, oh, you're choosing us, huh? Why would that be?" Until we grow a backbone on that issue, I don't think there's any reason to believe that it can't happen again. Top of the hour break. Louie is in the house. It's shocking but true. And
it's cabin season.
Yeah, that's also true. Well, it's a little early for cabin season.
No,
no
not
Memorial Day.
Cabin.
Yeah.
It's never too early. It's open all year.
That's a really good point. Questions for Luigi. Questions for Luigi. They've already started to come in. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. Here's the big question I got for Louie. I asked you this yesterday. I've asked other people this as well. If you want to win a Stanley Cup and you can only have one of two, a top 5 goaltender or a top 5 center, which is more fundamental?
But you know what?
To bringing a cup. Louie will answer that question and many, many more when we return.
This is Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report.